morning, everyone. Good morning. Blessings to all of you from Go-Go and Paula. The grandchildren call her Go-Go. I call her my girlfriend, my love, Go-Go, Trishy, my special bride. And she is going to bless us with singing with me today. Yay! It took a lot last night at about 11 o'clock to get this pulled off. It's a new song, but I really envy her because she can actually play the piano and sing at the same time. I would not be so fortunate to be able to do that. I'll try not to sing too loud, so if she can sing loud, and we don't need a microphone, she says. Pretend like we're sitting in you're at home with us, you're sitting in our living room. And
that's the only way I do this.
So you're not here. God's here. You're our friend. Great. Hear that. So we're going to do this song. Yeah. Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. Unless you're going to sing at you. That'd be scary. All right. The name of this song is The Summons. We learned it yesterday. Don't know the words, so forgive us for looking down. But blessings to my bride for joining me here. Welcome to our living room. As I always mean this most sincerely, it is always a blessing to be here. I honestly really never know exactly what I'm going to do until something comes up in my life within a couple weeks of being here. It's not like I have a great repertoire of services or messages. Well, this week, it is actually about 10 days ago, it started with a conversation with my wife, and she never knows what I'm going to say when I get up here or who it's going to be about. Well, this is about all of us. It started, and I know exactly where we were. You were actually driving, we turned coming down to Meridosha, and we got started on a political, family, we got to take care of that, a political issue. We started talking about taxes, where those tax dollars went. In this particular case, we were talking about abortion. The service will not be about abortion, but it's about how the conversation started that led to this time. And I turned to her and I said, and my wife can get frisky when it comes to things in politics. And they're all on target. But I'm scared for her blood pressure. So here's the way it went. So I turned to her and we talked about how our dollars in this country are spent and where it goes. And the sadness that brings. And I turned to her and I not that I preached to my wife, and she told me to come in just over here on the street. She said, "Well, I love when you preach to me." And I said, "I love when you preach to me and keep me on the level." But I turned to her and I said, "Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God." So that started us, bear with me, because I promise everything I'm going to say in the next 2 minutes is not going to have anything to do with the service, other than the fact of things that weigh heavy on our heart. About 5 months ago, when all the blues were going over the nation there, we talked about aliens for a month. It took $1 million missiles to shoot down spy satellites and then a man's little weather balloon. And the country was in turmoil over the aliens. So from that time on, the news media, because of the hype that they put on all that, we from now on have called, she came home the other night and I said, "Well, honey, did you listen to any aliens today?" Meaning the news broadcast. Because in that broadcast, there was not just the aliens, and this service is not about aliens, it's not about taxation. But I sometimes get my blood pressure worked up because I read too much. But right now, if we look at our country, we got President Trump, President Biden, Hunter Biden, the border, the Ukrainian war. We have parents who are fighting with their school board about whether a parent should be told whether or not their child wants a sex change. And the more I listen to these things, and the heartache that go on. If we turn on the news, we have fast forward, we never listen to it live, we go boop, 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 boop. I get about a 1 hour program, I get down to 7 minutes because I want to know what's real. So this led me to this message. That coin. That coin. And what was on that coin. And I would love to, the more I read, the more I wanted to know more about this day in Jesus' life. I don't know what day of the week it was, But a day after, let's say, he cleared the temple of money changers. And there was two. The 21st verse is not where we're going to read from, but the 21st chapter of Matthew, there are two parables, and they're poignant. There is the one of the landowners and the two sons, and then next in chapter 22, it is the parable of the marriage feast. So I want you to hear the story of this day that our Jesus Christ spent fighting for humanity. The first two and the third parable, the first two was directed to the chief priests and the Pharisees. The parable of the wedding feast was directed completely at the Pharisees, but it applies to all of us. But for the sake of time, I would love for us, not that I want your job, but I could spend a week, not a week every day, but I could spend 7 weeks talking about these 3 pages in the Bible. A day in the life of Christ. So I'm going to start at the end of chapter 22, Matthew chapter 22, verse 15. He's already put in place the Pharisees and the chief priests. But the picture I want to paint you is, were things so undifferent then than they were now? 15. When the Pharisees went and counseled together how they might trap him, meaning Jesus, into what he said. And they sent their disciples, and along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in truth, and defer to no one, for you are not partial to any. These were people from the Pharisees who were doing nothing but trying to trap Jesus into saying something that would later get him killed. This is all going on in the underground. The Pharisees and Herodians hated each other. There was not one common piece of ground except that they hated Jesus Christ. The Herodians, well, you know who Herod is. He ruled in Judea from 4 BC to 39 AD. So we know where he fell into Jesus' life and in his kingship. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it lawful to give a poll tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their malice and said, Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the poll tax. And they brought him a denarius. And he said to them, Whose likeness is on this coin? And they said to him, Well, Caesar's, he said to them. Then render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God. In hearing this, they marveled, and leaving, they went away. Now, I'll come back to that. But to get a picture of a life, a one-day life in Jesus, according to the Matthew version of all this, these parables, and what I just read, and the next one has to do with the Sadducees. And please understand that the Sadducees believed in the book of Moses. They didn't believe in the resurrection. They were aristocrats, the wealthy of the Jewish people. There were some priests in there. But they looked at Jesus as well as a threat. We have the chief priests. We have the Pharisees, the Herodians. Now we have the Sadducees. And that next part is on that day, this is the same day, the Sadducees, who say there's no resurrection, came to him and questioned him, saying, Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies having no children, this brother
as next of kin shall marry, and raise up the offspring to be his brother. Keep going. Now there were 7 brothers with us. The first married and died, having no offspring, left it to his wife, and on we go through 7 marriages. Get down to the 29th verse. Well, actually, the 28th. In the resurrection, well, remember, once again, he's trying to be tricked. These are the Sadducees who believed in no resurrection. And in the resurrection, therefore, whose wife of the 7 shall she be? For they all have it. And that means what it says. But Jesus answered and said to them, you are mistaken in not understanding the Scriptures or the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. But regarding the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken to you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob? He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And when the multitudes heard this, they were astonished at his teachings. So first, one trickery from the Pharisees. Second, a trickery from the Herodians and the Sadducees. But I have to add one more. A chuckle, maybe. But when the Pharisees heard when the Pharisees heard that Jesus had put the Sadducees basically in their place, they gathered themselves together, and one of them, ready? A lawyer, asked him a question, testing him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And please remember, the Sadducees and the Pharisees were at complete odds and such a fear of Jesus. The Pharisees were so judgmental. There was the ritualness of what their lives were and what their message was to their people, whether it was the law of tithing or just simply love of the ritual. But Jesus, if you would continue to read the next 2 pages of Matthew, he puts them all in their place. Don't forget, he cleared the temple. Now he's put the Pharisees and he's placed the Sadducees. But even the lawyer, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. The second, this is where it's cool. It is like it. I'm not saying that it's equal. But Jesus himself said, the second commandment that I'm about to give you is like it. In other words, placing your total love and respect and your humility to God. Well, here's it comes to us. The second is like this. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments depend the whole law. Remember again who he's talking to. Depend on the whole law and the prophets. While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them a question. What do you think about the Christ? And whose son is he? They said to him, well, the son of David. Then I never got a clear picture of this until I read it about 12 times, and I've heard it 1,000 times. He said to them, then how does David in the Spirit call him Lord, saying, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put thine enemies beneath thy feet. If David then calls him Lord, how is he son? Such brilliance, and I know that he should be pretty brilliant. He's God's boy. And no one was able to answer him. Not a word. nor did anyone dare from that day on to ask him another question. That was recorded. And then I'm going to go one step further before I go back to the coin. The next, and this is the same day, this is the way it goes, I'm not going to read it all. Then Jesus, meaning in connection to, according to the Greek, he spoke to the multitudes and to his disciples. And in that, he begs his people that he loves, these disciples and the multitudes, to watch out for the Pharisees, the hypocrites. I struggle with being too outspoken from time to time about our laws. But if you compare what was going on in this one day of Jesus' time, I had to write a list. This I got to read. But you had all these sects, different groups with the subterfuge of getting what they wanted, and they would even get in bed with the people that they hated, all for their goal, to destroy Jesus. And ultimately, in their mind, they destroyed him by killing him. And I'm sure that if Jesus was indeed as human as we believe him to be, that he would clear the temple and then stand up in front of all the people who those multitudes looked to as their rule. You had politicians and Herodians, the Sadducees, who were so powerful with their money, the Pharisees that were so strict on the law, and the chief priests that run. They throw in a lawyer. It sounds like the House of Senate, the judicial system. The fighting that's going on right now, if we can't get anybody to decide on anything. So in that thought, I come to humility. And it had to do with me telling my wife, remember where the coin come from and who you should pay that to. In Jesus' time, I'm going to give you a list of the taxes. You ready? Religious and secular. King of Israel. Military draft. Judea was part of the Roman province of Syria. They had a tax. There was a toll tax. There was a crop tax. There was a wine tax. There was an export tax. There was an import tax. Special taxes if there was a war. And property tax. And you wonder why Zacchaeus had such a bad name? No wonder he climbed a tree. Because the only way that the local tax people got paid was to skim and draw out of the people above what the Roman tax was. Corruption. And the people were bitter and they were angry and they wanted Jesus to be more than just their Savior. They wanted a warrior. Well, what are we wanting today? So here's where it goes. This is the speech to Papa and the speech to Go-Go. On that coin, whose face is on that coin? We pull out a dollar bill. We've got our presidents, scattered all through our monetary system. I forget from time to time as I see her fire up about an issue that we should be fired up over. We should be sad. We should be so criminally, I don't want to be rude. But the sanctity of life that we believe in so much is thrown around as if it's nothing. Once again, you can hear all the little lists of what's going on in our lives now. Don't forget whose name and whose face is on that coin. Over here. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and you give unto God that which is God's. That's us. Each and every one of you sitting here was fashioned after God. We were made in his image. We were born through his blood. Through a faith that we can be who we are. We can love each other the way we choose to love each other in the faith of Christ. Not through the destruction of this coin. I have to let my blood pressure fall and my peace. What is you supposed to? Love those that hate you. When the government or the judicial system does things that seemingly seem so out of proportion for people. When parents can't be told from a school board, or a governor tries to make it a crime not to allow your child to have a sex change, we can't watch it. I pray every single morning. I mean this. Every single morning I pray for our nation, and I pray for our people who have to run it. I would pray for an awakening, but then I remember where my awakening belongs is in me. To remember that I'm born of God, and that you are born of God. That you are a child of the eternal, not the temporary. The coin is temporary. It's such a fleeting moment for all of us. No one knows that better than my wife and I. But we are structured in the life of eternity. All we have to do is be that humble person in the obedient heart. God is never tired of forgiving us. Never. He never grows weary. We do. Our God is so good. And he's bigger than all of this crap. And I'm sorry, I said it in church. Mom would not be happy. Phew. My apologies. And you. But I get very frustrated. Very, very frustrated at the hatred in our nation right now. I do not want to tear up one person that I love. Not over this. When we have this. When we have the glory of God at our fingertips. I'll be done. I'll pray. I thank you for letting me run my mouth. Thank you for letting us sing today. But do not forget who you are and what you have in Jesus Christ. Let's pray. Father, I love you for your Son, the redemption, the hope, that no one can separate us from you. Nothing. We thank you for that gift. We thank you for the gift of salvation. We thank you for the gift of Jesus Christ and the sacrifice that you gave. For him being willing to put up with all the things that he had to put up with before he could come home. The humanity of the suffering. Father, be with our nation and the children of this nation. Show us a path. Give us the strength. I thank you for this church. I thank you for the spirits in this church. And once again, thank you for being the God. In your most precious and holy name I pray.